If it's always someone else's fault, you're not growing. That's not just a statement. It's a call to self-awareness. When we look at life through a lens of blame, we place ourselves in a passive position. We make ourselves victims of circumstance, handing over our power to the actions, words, or mistakes of others. Growth comes when we take full responsibility for our experiences. When we stop pointing fingers, we stop feeding the habit of self-pity, and we begin to fuel the engine of personal transformation. We live in a world filled with noise in the form of opinions, judgments, expectations, and endless distractions that pull at our attention every single day. From the moment we wake up to the moment we close our eyes, are bombarded with stimuli, messages on social media, news headlines, conversations at work, challenges in relationships, and countless moments where other people's words and actions brush against the fabric of our peace. It is no wonder that so many of us feel exhausted, emotionally drained, and easily shaken by things outside of our control. The truth is, most of us unconsciously give away our power by allowing external events to determine how we feel. We react without pause, replaying negative experiences in our minds and giving them a place in our hearts that they never truly deserve. This is the first step toward understanding the art of emotional mastery. To recognize that no one has control over our inner state unless we allow them to. Imagine how different life would feel if, instead of reacting to every slight, insult, failure, or disappointment, we learn to respond intentionally and calmly. Imagine the weight we could shed if we stopped giving others power over our emotions. This book is about choosing you, about deciding that your peace of mind matters more than the opinions of others, more than external circumstances, more than the noise that seeks to disturb your calm. This is not a lesson in avoidance or denial. It is a lesson in self-mastery. It is about building a mindset that is steady, grounded, and resilient, no matter what storms come your way. At the heart of this journey lies self-talk, the ongoing internal dialogue that you have with yourself every day. Self-talk is the quiet voice inside you that interprets the world and assigns meaning to your experiences. Too often, this voice is critical, self-sabotaging, reactive without even realizing it. But self-talk can also be the most powerful tool you possess to create lasting change. When you train your inner voice to speak with kindness, clarity, and positivity, you transform not just how you think, but how you feel and how you act. Awareness is the first step. Awareness of your thoughts, your feelings, and the narratives you constantly replay is where change begins. Without awareness, we drift through life on autopilot, reacting to stimuli without choice, and surrendering our peace to the chaos around us. Awareness allows us to create that critical pause, the moment between what happens and how we respond. And in that pause lies power. That pause is where we choose. It is where we decide whether to let something affect us or let it pass without disturbance. Is where we begin to build immunity to the emotional storms of life. In order to cultivate this awareness, we must begin to notice patterns, moments when we feel emotionally unsettled, triggered, or reactive. Ask yourself, what kinds of events or situations push me off balance? How often do I replay conversations or grievances in my mind? What stories am I telling myself about what happened? These questions are not meant to create judgment, but to open understanding. They are the first steps toward breaking free from unconscious emotional habits. Once you recognize these patterns, you can begin to reframe them. Reframing is the process of consciously shifting your perspective on a situation so that it empowers you rather than drains you. Instead of seeing a criticism as an attack, you might see it as an opportunity for growth. Instead of viewing a setback as proof of failure, you might view it as a lesson or a redirection. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending challenges don't exist. It means choosing to interpret them in ways that strengthen you rather than weaken you. Reframing is a skill, and like any skill, requires intentional practice. Another important truth to embrace at the start of this journey is that you cannot control everything in life. There will always be events, circumstances, and people outside of your control. Trying to control them only leads to frustration and emotional exhaustion. But you can control yourself, your thoughts, your attitude, and your actions. And that is where true freedom begins. The moment you accept that control over your emotional state belongs to you alone is the moment you reclaim your peace. This is why this book begins with the concept of self-talk, because how you speak to yourself shapes your perception of reality. The words you choose internally can either empower you or disempower you. They can anchor you in peace or drag you into turmoil. When you begin to consciously choose your words, you begin to shape your emotional reality. This is not a quick fix. It is a lifelong practice. But it is a practice worth cultivating, because it leads to lasting change. The first chapter of this book is a foundation. It is the understanding that your peace is not dependent on external conditions, but on your inner choices. Is the realization that to stop letting anything affect you requires building an unshakable internal framework. One that begins with awareness and is strengthened by intentional self-talk. This framework becomes a shield against the noise of the world, allowing you to walk through life with steadiness, resilience, and clarity. As you move forward, you will discover that emotional mastery is not about eliminating challenges or discomfort. It is about transforming your relationship with them. It is about cultivating a mindset that remains calm in the face of chaos, grounded in truth, focused on growth. This is a choice you make each day, a choice to stop giving away your power and to begin living with intention. So let this chapter be your invitation to start that journey, to step into the practice of awareness, to question the stories you tell yourself, to reframe challenges as opportunities, and to train your inner voice to speak with strength and kindness. If you can do this, you will be laying the cornerstone of a transformed mind, one that can stop letting anything affect you. This is your foundation, your starting point, first step toward mastery of the mind and freedom of the heart. The first step in transforming your mindset is awareness, and awareness is not just a concept. It is the active, deliberate practice of noticing your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, triggers that disturb your peace. Awareness is the bridge between reaction and choice. Without it, we are like passengers on a runaway train, carried forward by forces we barely understand, responding unconsciously to every stimulus without pause or clarity. But awareness gives us the ability to step off autopilot and reclaim control of our inner state. It is not a skill that happens overnight, cultivated with attention, patience, and consistent practice. Awareness begins by learning to observe without judgment, noticing what happens inside your mind without immediately reacting to it. This means recognizing the moments when your emotions rise, when a thought feels heavier than it should, when your heart rate increases, or when your mind begins to replay a scene from earlier in the day. These are clues, signals that something inside you is reacting to the world around you. Awareness means catching those signals in real time, instead of letting them pull you into an emotional spiral, means becoming curious about your emotional responses instead of swept away by them. For example, when someone criticizes you, or when something doesn't go as planned, instead of immediately reacting with defensiveness, frustration, or sadness, you take a moment to notice what is happening internally. What thought has arisen in your mind? What feeling has that thought created in your body? This simple act of noticing creates a space, a pause between stimulus and response, where choice becomes possible. That pause is the beginning of emotional mastery. Without awareness, we hand over our power to circumstances, to other people, and to events. But awareness allows us to reclaim that power, to choose how we respond rather than reacting instinctively. It allows us to break the cycle of unconscious living. Developing awareness also means understanding your triggers, those patterns that reliably provoke strong emotional responses. Triggers might be certain words, tones of voice, types of situations, or even memories from the past. They are not random. They are the result of conditioning and past experiences. By identifying triggers, you take away their unconscious control over you. This is not about avoiding discomfort. It is about preparing yourself to meet it with clarity and calm. It is about learning that you do not have to react in the way you always have. Awareness deepens when you begin to question your thoughts rather than accepting them as truth. Our minds constantly interpret the world around us. Those interpretations are not facts. They are stories we tell ourselves. And those stories can be rewritten. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it useful? Does it serve my peace of mind and my growth, or does it feed my anxiety, resentment, or self-doubt? This kind of self-inquiry is the heart of self-awareness. Shifts you from being a passive receiver of life to being an active participant in your own mental world. Awareness also requires turning your attention inward at times when your mind wants to run outward. We live in a culture of distraction, where attention is pulled toward constant stimulation, entertainment, or external validation. But emotional mastery is built by training your mind to turn inward, to be aware of what is happening inside you rather than what is happening outside. This can be cultivated through simple practices like mindfulness, journaling, meditation, or quiet reflection. These practices train the mind to pause and notice, rather than to react impulsively. When awareness becomes a habit, it creates an unshakable foundation for emotional resilience. This is because awareness transforms your relationship with your thoughts and feelings. Instead of being swept away by them, you learn to observe them, understand them, and then decide how to act. This is where the power of choice comes in. The ability to decide whether a situation will disturb your peace, or whether you will respond with calm and clarity. Without awareness, we live as though our emotional reactions are automatic and inevitable. But with awareness, we discover that we can interrupt those reactions. We can choose a different path, even in the middle of conflict or challenge. Awareness also means noticing the stories you tell yourself about life, about others, and about yourself. Often, these stories are shaped by past experiences, cultural conditioning, or self-limiting beliefs. They are mental scripts that replay automatically and influence how we interpret events. Becoming aware of these scripts gives you the opportunity to rewrite them. Instead of telling yourself, "I can't handle this," you can choose to say, "I can learn to handle this." Instead of saying, "They are trying to hurt me," you might say, "Their words reveal more about them than about me." The difference in self-talk changes not only how you feel in the moment, but also the direction of your growth. Awareness also fosters emotional freedom because it teaches you that you are not your thoughts or feelings. You are the observer of them. This shift in perspective is profound. It is the realization that your inner state is not determined by circumstances, but by how you choose to interpret and respond to them. Awareness empowers you to detach from the automatic reactions that keep you emotionally vulnerable and gives you the ability to stand firm in your peace. Essence, awareness is the foundation of freedom. Without it, you remain bound to unconscious patterns, reacting to life rather than creating it. With it, you begin to build the skill of choosing your response to anything life places in your path. Developing awareness is not about becoming perfect or never reacting. It is about becoming skilled at noticing your reactions so that you can decide which are helpful and which are not. It is about creating a life where your peace is no longer determined by external events, but by your inner clarity. This chapter is about planting the seed of that skill. It is about realizing that awareness is the first step in transforming your mindset. Awareness is the gateway to choice, the first act of self-mastery, and the foundation upon which all other practices in this book rest. Without awareness, talk remains unconscious and reactive. With awareness, self-talk becomes intentional, empowering, and transformative. As you move forward, remember that awareness is a practice, not a one-time achievement. It grows stronger the more you exercise it. Each moment you pause, each time you notice your thoughts, each time you question your reactions, you deepen your awareness and strengthen your ability to stop letting anything affect you. Awareness is the choice to step out of autopilot and step into your power. And that is the beginning of a transformed mind. Learning to take full responsibility for your emotional state is one of the most powerful shifts you can make on the path to emotional mastery. Yet it is one of the hardest truths to embrace because it asks us to look deeply at ourselves rather than at the world around us. Stop blaming circumstances or other people for our feelings, and instead recognize that we have the capacity to control our own internal experience. Far too common to hear phrases like, "They made me angry," "That situation stressed me out," or, "If they had just acted differently, I wouldn't feel this way." And while these words feel justified in the moment, they are in fact a surrender of your personal power. When we place the cause of our emotions outside ourselves, we give away control of our peace, and we allow life to dictate our mood, our mindset, our actions. Taking responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that happens. It is about acknowledging that no one has the power to determine how you feel, unless you allow them to. This is a mindset shift that transforms reactive living into intentional living. Imagine how different life would be if you accepted that your feelings are your responsibility, and therefore your power. If you wake up one day feeling upset because of something someone said, or because of an unexpected challenge, taking responsibility means stopping at that moment to reflect. What part of this am I choosing to hold on to? What story am I telling myself? How much of my reaction is truly about what happened, and how much is about my interpretation of it? This shift does not come naturally for most people. We are conditioned to see external factors as the cause of our feelings. We grow up learning to assign blame, to attribute failure, discomfort, or pain to something or someone outside ourselves. But true emotional growth begins when we flip that perspective and look inward instead of outward. Taking responsibility is the foundation of emotional freedom because it moves you from being a passive victim of circumstances to becoming the active creator of your inner world. This does not mean that life becomes easier or that challenges disappear. Life will always bring difficulties, disappointments, and encounters that test your resolve. But when you take responsibility for your emotional state, those difficulties no longer have the same power over you. You stop being swept away by them and instead face them with clarity and strength. Taking responsibility also requires honesty, the willingness to acknowledge when you are reacting in ways that do not serve you. This means examining your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without judgment and without excuses. It means asking yourself questions like, am I reacting out of fear, pride, or past wounds? Am I holding on to something that no longer serves me? Am I allowing my emotions to be dictated by others instead of by my own conscious choice? These are difficult questions because they force you to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. But they are essential for growth. Responsibility is not about self-punishment, it is about empowerment, is the recognition that while you cannot control every event or every word spoken to you, you can control how you interpret, process, and respond to them. It is about moving from a place of powerlessness to a place of agency. Taking responsibility also changes how you engage with conflict and criticism. When you no longer blame others for your feelings, you begin to respond differently. Instead of reacting defensively, you listen with openness. Instead of escalating tension, you seek understanding. Instead of replaying grievances, you release them. This is not about suppressing emotions but about owning them and choosing your response consciously rather than unconsciously. This shift requires practice. It begins with awareness, noticing when you are slipping into blame, and is strengthened through deliberate self-talk. When you catch yourself saying, "They made me feel this way," pause and reframe your thought. I am choosing to feel this way, and I can choose differently. This reframe is a simple yet powerful practice that gradually rewires your mental patterns and strengthens your emotional resilience. Taking responsibility also means letting go of the need to control other people or situations. So often, we blame others because we wish they would act differently, think differently, or treat us differently. But this desire to control is a trap that robs us of peace. Responsibility teaches us that our peace cannot depend on changing someone else, must come from changing ourselves. This does not mean giving up your boundaries or tolerating unhealthy behavior. It means finding stability within yourself regardless of how others behave. Taking responsibility deepens your self-awareness because it requires you to examine your role in your experiences without shifting blame. It teaches you that peace is an inside job, and that no external event has power over your inner state unless you allow it. This perspective transforms challenges from sources of frustration into opportunities for growth. It transforms criticism from something to fear into something to learn from. It transforms disappointment from a reason to despair into a reason to build resilience. When you take responsibility for your emotional state, you stop being at the mercy of circumstances and start being the author of your own emotional reality. Is why Chapter 3 is so crucial. It is the foundation of emotional freedom. Without this responsibility, no amount of positive self-talk, awareness, or mindset work will have lasting impact because you will still be giving your power away. But when you embrace responsibility, every other practice becomes more effective because they rest on the unshakable truth that your peace is yours to protect. It is a choice you make every day, every moment, no matter what life presents. Taking responsibility is not a destination. It is a practice that grows stronger with time. It is an ongoing commitment to stop pointing fingers and start looking inward, to stop surrendering your power and start reclaiming it. It is a decision to stand in your own truth and to refuse to let external events dictate your inner life. When you make this choice, you step into a new way of living, one where you are not a victim of circumstances, but a master of your mind. This chapter is your invitation to take that step. It is the call to stop blaming others and start owning your experience, to replace reaction with choice, build a foundation of emotional responsibility that will serve you in every aspect of life. Taking responsibility is not always easy. It is the path to lasting freedom, resilience, and peace of mind. It is the ultimate act of empowerment, because when you take full responsibility for how you feel, you are no longer at the mercy of anything outside of you. And that is true mastery. Letting go is not just an act, it is a skill, a conscious choice to release the grip of thoughts, emotions, and expectations that weigh us down and keep us tethered to unnecessary suffering. And yet letting go is one of the most misunderstood practices, because many believe it means forgetting or pretending pain does not exist, when in fact letting go means acknowledging reality fully and then choosing not to remain trapped in it emotionally. A process that begins with awareness, recognizing that certain thoughts and feelings no longer serve your peace of mind, and that clinging to them only prolongs your struggle. Letting go requires honesty, the courage to admit when you are holding on out of fear, attachment, or resistance to change, the willingness to face the discomfort that comes with releasing something familiar. Often we hold on because it feels safe, even when it causes pain, because the unknown can seem far scarier than the suffering we know. But letting go opens a door to freedom, a space where growth and transformation become possible. It is the conscious decision to stop replaying past hurts, to stop ruminating over what was, stop living in anticipation of what might go wrong. Letting go is not about erasing memories or denying emotions. It is about choosing not to carry unnecessary burdens into the present moment. This skill is vital because much of what affects us emotionally comes from our inability to release past pain or unhelpful expectations for the future. We hold on to resentment, grudges, fear of rejection, perfectionism, and the need for control, and these attachments distort our perception of reality and keep us in cycles of suffering. Letting go is an act of self-liberation, a way to reclaim your mental and emotional energy so that you can live with clarity and peace. To let go, you must first recognize what you are holding on to. This requires self-reflection and honest questioning. What thoughts or feelings keep resurfacing? What stories about the past do I keep telling myself? What outcomes am I resisting? These questions guide you to uncover the hidden attachments that drain your energy. Awareness of what you hold on to is the first step, and the next step is acceptance. Acknowledging that these attachments exist without judging yourself for having them. Acceptance is the foundation of letting go because it removes resistance, and resistance is what keeps emotional wounds alive. Letting go also involves shifting your relationship to control. Many of us hold on because we believe we can control the outcome of events, other people's behavior, or the way things should be. This belief creates frustration when reality does not match our expectations. Letting go teaches us to release the need for absolute control and to trust that life unfolds as it should, even if it is not according to our plans. This does not mean abandoning ambition or responsibility. It means letting go of the false belief that control over external circumstances is what determines peace. Instead, peace comes from control over your inner world. Letting go transforms how we handle disappointment and conflict. When you are not clutching onto a fixed idea of how things must be, you respond to challenges with greater flexibility and grace. You become less reactive and more able to engage in solutions rather than getting stuck in resistance. Letting go is also deeply tied to forgiveness. The willingness to release resentment and judgment toward yourself and others. Forgiveness is not condoning harm or forgetting injustice, it is freeing yourself from carrying the emotional weight of those experiences. This release lightens your mental load and allows you to move forward unburdened. Practice of letting go is cultivated through intentional self-talk and mindfulness. When a painful thought arises, instead of feeding it with endless analysis or resentment, you notice it, acknowledge it, and then gently release it. This thought is not serving me, and I choose not to hold on. Over time, this practice rewires your mind to respond to difficulties with greater ease. Letting go is not a one-time act but a continual process because life constantly presents new challenges, expectations, and attachments. It is an ongoing choice to return to peace rather than remain in reaction. This is why letting go is not a single event, but a daily commitment, is strengthened when you integrate it into your self-talk, affirmations, and reflections, reminding yourself that your peace is more valuable than clinging to what cannot be changed. That your emotional freedom depends on your willingness to release, and that letting go is an act of self-love. Letting go does not make you weak, it makes you powerful, because it is the conscious choice to step out of struggle and into peace. It is a declaration that you will no longer give power to pain, fear, or resentment. This practice changes your relationship to life itself, transforming obstacles into opportunities for growth, criticism into fuel for improvement, and disappointment into lessons for resilience. Letting go teaches you to live fully in the present, because it frees you from the chains of the past and the anxieties of the future. It gives you space to respond to life from a place of clarity rather than reactivity. When you master the art of letting go, you create a foundation for emotional stability that is unshaken by external circumstances. Build resilience because you no longer rely on circumstances being a certain way in order to feel peace. Instead, you anchor your peace in your own inner capacity to release and to choose differently. This is why letting go is a cornerstone of transforming your mindset. It is the ability to stop letting anything affect you by removing the emotional hooks that keep you tied to reaction and struggle. Letting go is not about becoming indifferent. It is about becoming aware and choosing wisely how to direct your energy. It is a form of inner empowerment that changes how you live, think, and respond. This chapter is a call to practice letting go in every area of your life. Letting go of resentment, limiting beliefs, expectations, self-criticism, fear, so that you can step into a state of greater freedom and peace. Letting go is not an endpoint but a lifelong skill that grows stronger with intention and practice. Every time you choose to let go, strengthen your ability to stop letting anything affect you and to live with clarity, balance, and inner peace. Letting go is not giving up, is rising above. It is one of the greatest acts of self-mastery you can cultivate on your journey toward a transformed mind. Developing emotional resilience is not a matter of avoiding difficulties or suppressing feelings, but cultivating the inner strength to face life's challenges without losing your peace. This skill is essential for transforming your mindset, because life will always bring uncertainty, disappointment, and moments that test your ability to stay centered, So resilience becomes the foundation upon which lasting emotional stability is built. It is the capacity to endure hardship while maintaining clarity, to recover quickly from setbacks, and to adapt without losing yourself in the process. And building this capacity begins with a deep understanding that resilience is not a fixed trait but a skill that can be strengthened through practice, awareness, and intentional self-talk. Emotional resilience grows when you learn to reframe challenges not as threats, but as opportunities for growth. A perspective that shifts your relationship to adversity and changes how you respond when life becomes difficult. Rather than seeing challenges as something to be avoided, resilient individuals see them as necessary steps in personal evolution. This reframing requires practice and deliberate effort, because our instinctive reactions often lean toward fear, avoidance, or blame, and these responses weaken resilience rather than strengthen it. Resilience begins with self-awareness, noticing your emotional patterns when faced with difficulty. This includes recognizing when you are slipping into fear or negativity and choosing to respond with calm and clarity instead. Developing this awareness involves training your mind to observe without judgment, to create a space between stimulus and response, where choice emerges. This space is where resilience is forged because it allows you to decide how to respond rather than being driven by impulse. Building resilience also involves strengthening your self-talk. The way you speak to yourself in moments of difficulty shapes your emotional response. Resilient people use empowering language that supports them rather than diminishes them. For example, instead of thinking, "I can't handle this," they reframe it as, "This is difficult, but I can handle it one step at a time." This shift in language rewires your mindset, fostering strength instead of vulnerability. Another crucial aspect of resilience is cultivating flexibility. Life rarely unfolds exactly as planned. Rigidity in expectation leads to frustration. Resilient individuals learn to adapt, to bend without breaking, approach change with openness rather than resistance. Flexibility allows you to flow with life's uncertainties, maintaining balance even when external circumstances are turbulent. This adaptability comes from cultivating a strong sense of inner stability that does not rely on external validation or control. This stability comes from building trust in your own ability to navigate life's ups and downs. Resilience also grows through practice in small daily challenges, not just in moments of crisis. Every time you face discomfort, disappointment, or change and choose to respond calmly, you strengthen your emotional muscles. These small acts of resilience accumulate, creating a habit of responding to life with strength and equanimity. This is why daily self-talk and mindfulness are critical tools in building resilience. They keep you anchored and prevent emotional overwhelm from taking root. Part of resilience is also understanding that setbacks are not failures but lessons. This perspective transforms disappointment from something to be feared into something to be embraced as part of growth. When you view obstacles as opportunities to learn and grow, your emotional response shifts from resistance to curiosity. This shift deepens your resilience. Resilient people cultivate patience because growth rarely happens instantly. They understand that building emotional strength is a process and are willing to give themselves grace in the process. They treat setbacks as part of a larger journey rather than a signal of defeat. This patient approach keeps them moving forward even when progress feels slow. Another pillar of resilience is self-compassion. The ability to treat yourself with kindness rather than criticism in times of difficulty. Self-compassion reinforces resilience because it reduces self-blame and strengthens self-trust, which are essential for bouncing back after challenges. When you speak to yourself with understanding instead of harsh judgment, you nurture your emotional well-being and give yourself permission to heal and adapt. Building resilience also means developing healthy coping strategies, such as breathing exercises, mindfulness, journaling, or physical movement, so that when challenges arise, you have reliable tools to regulate your emotions and maintain perspective. These strategies create a buffer against being overwhelmed and give you the ability to respond rather than react. Resilience transforms not just how you handle challenges, but how you experience life. It allows you to remain grounded in the face of uncertainty, to move forward with courage even when outcomes are unknown, and to hold on to peace even when external conditions are unstable. This is why resilience is a cornerstone of emotional mastery. Without it, even the most positive mindset can be shaken when life tests you. Developing resilience is an ongoing practice, not a one-time achievement. It requires consistent effort, self-reflection, and intentional choices. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to strengthen this capacity, and every time you respond with calm and clarity, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of handling whatever life presents. Resilience is not about avoiding pain or difficulty. It is about meeting life's inevitable challenges with strength and grace. It is the quiet confidence that no matter what happens, you have the inner resources to navigate it. This chapter is your guide to building that strength, a reminder that resilience is cultivated through awareness, talk, flexibility, patience, self-compassion, and healthy coping strategies, and that it is within your power to grow this ability every single day. Emotional resilience allows you to stop letting anything affect you by giving you the strength to remain grounded and centered regardless of life's storms. When you develop resilience, you create a foundation of emotional strength that protects your peace and empowers your growth, turning adversity into an opportunity to deepen your mastery over your mind and your life. Mastering your inner dialogue is one of the most powerful ways to stop letting anything affect you. Because your thoughts shape your emotional reality, and the way you speak to yourself determines whether you respond to life with calm or with chaos. So developing positive self-talk is not simply about repeating affirmations, but about creating a consistent practice of awareness, choice, reframing that rewires your mind for resilience, peace, and clarity. This begins with the understanding that your thoughts are not facts. They are interpretations, and those interpretations can be changed with conscious effort. This awareness gives you the power to interrupt negative self-talk before it spirals into unnecessary suffering, to replace it with constructive and compassionate perspectives that support rather than undermine your well-being. Many people live unconsciously, allowing their minds to replay criticism, doubt, fear, and regret, and as a result, they are at the mercy of their emotional states rather than the architects of their inner world. And breaking free from this pattern requires the deliberate cultivation of self-awareness so that you can recognize when your inner voice is slipping into harmful territory. Intervene with intentional language that reframes the situation in a way that aligns with growth rather than self-destruction. Positive self-talk begins with observation, noticing the thoughts that pass through your mind without judgment and identifying which ones carry negativity or unhelpful assumptions. Because awareness is the first step to change, and change begins when you refuse to accept every thought as absolute truth. Once you become aware of these patterns, you can begin the practice of consciously reshaping them, speaking to yourself with kindness and empowerment, treating your inner voice as a source of guidance rather than criticism. This does not mean ignoring reality or pretending difficulties do not exist. It means speaking to yourself in ways that keep you grounded and oriented toward solutions rather than feeding fear and resistance. For example, when faced with a setback, instead of telling yourself, "I'll never succeed," you might replace it with, "This is a challenge, but I can learn and grow from it." And this shift in language changes your emotional state, influencing your actions and your ability to recover. Developing this skill also involves understanding the patterns of your thinking and how they shape your emotional responses. Many times, negative self-talk is rooted in unexamined beliefs and assumptions that have been carried over from past experiences. Becoming aware of these patterns allows you to challenge and reframe them. This process is both an act of self-awareness and self-compassion because it requires you to acknowledge the thoughts without judgment while consciously redirecting them toward empowerment. Mastering your inner dialogue also requires consistency. Just as physical exercise builds strength over time, the habit of positive self-talk strengthens your mental and emotional resilience with repetition. Daily intentional practice, whether through affirmations, journaling, or mindful reflection, rewires your brain so that your natural response to challenges becomes constructive rather than reactive. Over time, this consistent practice transforms the quality of your inner world and creates a stable foundation for emotional freedom. Self-talk is not only about what you say to yourself in moments of difficulty, but also about the ongoing narrative you maintain about your life. Resilient, peaceful individuals develop a mindset that consistently reinforces positivity and self-trust, which makes them less vulnerable to being shaken by external events. This involves cultivating a habit of speaking to yourself with encouragement, patience, understanding, recognizing that you are your most constant companion and the one voice you can always rely on. Another vital aspect of mastering your inner dialogue is reframing failure and criticism. When you shift your language from self-blame to self-reflection, you transform the way you experience setbacks. For example, rather than thinking, "I failed because I'm not good enough," you might tell yourself, "This attempt didn't go as planned, I can learn and adjust." And this simple reframing reduces emotional reactivity and strengthens your ability to move forward with clarity and calm. Positive self-talk also involves cultivating gratitude and self-appreciation. By regularly acknowledging your strengths, your progress, and the aspects of life you value, you create a mental environment that is rich in positivity and less susceptible to being disrupted by negativity. Gratitude shifts the focus from lack to abundance and reinforces a mindset of growth rather than limitation. Furthermore, mastering your inner dialogue means becoming aware of the triggers that spark negative self-talk and preparing strategies to counteract them. This might involve deep breathing, pausing before reacting, journaling to release emotional tension, or redirecting your attention toward affirmations that ground you. These tools create a buffer that protects your mental state and reinforces your capacity to remain steady under pressure. Another important aspect is self-forgiveness, which is part of the language you use internally. When mistakes happen, your inner dialogue should support learning rather than condemnation, because self-blame not only prolongs suffering, but erodes self-trust, and replacing self-criticism with self-compassion fosters resilience and strengthens emotional freedom. Mastering your inner dialogue is ultimately about taking responsibility for your mental and emotional environment, is recognizing that while you may not control every external event, you control the way you interpret and respond to it. This is the true power of self-talk. It allows you to anchor your peace not in changing the world around you, but in transforming the world within you. This chapter is a call to develop the skill of intentional self-talk, your full attention, to treat your mind as a garden where the seeds of thoughts you plant determine the quality of your emotional harvest, and to commit to speaking to yourself with kindness, clarity, and strength so that you create a resilient mindset that is unshaken by external circumstances. By mastering your inner dialogue, you gain the power to stop letting anything affect you, because you have learned to respond with conscious choice rather than unconscious reaction, to replace fear with faith, doubt with clarity, and resistance with acceptance. This is the art of transforming your mindset. To choose words that heal, thoughts that empower, and a perspective that frees you to live with confidence and peace, no matter what life brings. Letting go of control is one of the most important steps toward achieving true inner peace, because much of the distress and frustration we experience comes from trying to control what is inherently uncontrollable, and learning to release that need for control is not a surrender of strength, but an exercise in cultivating freedom, trust, and clarity. It is the conscious choice to stop allowing external circumstances to dictate your inner state, and instead anchor yourself in acceptance, knowing that life unfolds in ways that cannot always be predicted or directed, and that resisting this truth only multiplies suffering, whereas releasing control allows you to respond with calm and confidence. Letting go does not mean giving up on your goals or abandoning responsibility. It means understanding the difference between what you can influence and what lies beyond your power, and choosing to focus your energy on what truly matters, while accepting the rest without unnecessary struggle. This shift in mindset comes from developing a deep trust in life's flow and cultivating faith in your own ability to navigate whatever comes your way. Begins with awareness, noticing when the desire for control arises, and asking yourself whether this desire is serving your peace or feeding anxiety. Our need for control stems from fear. Fear of uncertainty, failure, rejection, or change. And when we recognize this fear, we can begin to address it directly rather than unconsciously clinging to control as a false source of security. Releasing control requires patience and intentional practice, because it challenges deeply ingrained habits of the mind and body, and it asks you to embrace uncertainty as part of life rather than as a threat. This practice begins with small acts of letting go. Moments when you consciously choose not to micromanage situations, when you release the urge to predict or dictate outcomes, and when you allow events to unfold without excessive interference. Each act of letting go strengthens your ability to remain grounded in the face of unpredictability, and over time, it rewires your response to change, making you more adaptable and less reactive. Letting go also involves cultivating presence, the ability to focus on the current moment rather than dwelling on past regrets or future anxieties. When you anchor yourself in the present, you shift your attention away from control and toward acceptance, which transforms your experience of life. This presence is a powerful antidote to overthinking and unnecessary stress, because it reminds you that the only moment you truly have is the now. Trying to control the future takes you away from living fully in the present. Another essential element of letting go is self-trust. When you trust yourself to handle life's uncertainties, You no longer feel compelled to control every detail. Self-trust comes from developing confidence in your ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow, and it is strengthened by experience, reflection, and positive self-talk. The more you practice letting go, the more you reinforce this trust, and the less you allow fear to dictate your actions. Letting go also requires reframing your relationship with outcomes. Instead of attaching your peace to a specific result, you cultivate a mindset that values the process and growth over control of the end result. This shift allows you to engage fully with life without being paralyzed by the need for a predetermined outcome. It transforms your experience of challenges into opportunities to learn and adapt rather than situations to control. Emotional freedom comes when you let go of the illusion that control will guarantee safety or happiness. You embrace the truth that peace comes from acceptance, adaptability, and trust. This means practicing detachment without disengagement, releasing the grip on how things should happen, while still being fully engaged with life. Detachment is not indifference. It is the ability to participate fully without being emotionally dependent on controlling the outcome. Another dimension of letting go is forgiveness, both toward others and yourself. Holding on to resentment, blame, or guilt is a form of control because it keeps you tethered to the past and to a desire to change it, and this attachment fuels suffering. Forgiveness is the conscious decision to release this control, to accept what happened, and to free yourself from the emotional weight of holding on. This act of letting go heals wounds and creates space for peace and growth. Letting go also involves understanding that uncertainty is not a flaw to be fixed, but a natural part of life, and learning to embrace it rather than resist it builds resilience. Uncertainty carries with it possibility and potential, and when you release control, open yourself to experiences that might otherwise be missed due to fear. This openness transforms the way you live, allowing you to navigate life with curiosity and courage rather than anxiety. The practice of letting go is strengthened through daily mindfulness and self-reflection. Letting go is not a one-time decision but a continuous process. Each day presents opportunities to choose acceptance over control, trust life over fear, and to embrace uncertainty as part of growth. Over time, these choices become a natural part of your mindset, transforming your relationship with life's challenges and freeing you from the constant struggle to manage what cannot be managed. Letting go is ultimately about releasing the mental and emotional tension that comes from resisting life's flow, replacing it with a calm acceptance that allows you to respond with clarity and balance. It is the art of surrender without weakness, of trusting without giving up, and of finding peace in the midst of uncertainty. This chapter is your guide to practicing this art, offering you tools and perspectives to release the need for control and to anchor yourself in trust, presence, and acceptance, so that you can stop letting anything affect you. When you master the art of letting go, you step into a life of freedom where peace is not dependent on circumstances but grounded in the unshakable foundation of inner acceptance. And this is the heart of true emotional mastery. Developing emotional resilience is one of the most essential skills you can cultivate in order to stop letting anything affect you. Resilience is not about avoiding challenges but about strengthening your capacity to navigate difficulties with balance, clarity, and strength. And this process begins with understanding that your emotional response is not a fixed reaction, but a choice you can learn to influence. So building resilience means creating mental habits and perspectives that allow you to recover quickly from setbacks, without being overwhelmed by them. It means developing an inner stability that protects you from being tossed around by life's inevitable storms, and this stability comes from self-awareness, emotional regulation, and a mindset rooted in acceptance and growth, which together form the foundation of a resilient spirit. Emotional resilience is cultivated through consistent practice, and the first step is acknowledging that challenges and discomfort are an inevitable part of life, rather than exceptions to be avoided, because resistance to this reality creates stress and suffering, whereas acceptance allows you to face difficulties with greater clarity and less emotional turbulence. Building resilience begins with self-awareness. Noticing your emotional patterns, recognizing the triggers that cause distress, and understanding how your thoughts shape your reactions. Because awareness gives you the power to intervene before emotions take control. This means developing the ability to pause before responding, to examine your thoughts, and to choose your response consciously rather than reacting automatically. When you cultivate this pause, you create a gap between stimulus and reaction where choice becomes possible, and this gap is where resilience grows. Another key aspect of emotional resilience is cultivating emotional regulation, which is the ability to manage your emotional state rather than being managed by it. And this requires a practice of mindfulness, deep breathing, and reframing thoughts in ways that keep you grounded. Reframing is particularly powerful because it allows you to view challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats to your peace, and this perspective transforms the way you experience difficulty, turning adversity into a teacher rather than an obstacle. Emotional resilience also comes from cultivating a strong sense of self, knowing your values, your strengths, capacity to overcome challenges. And when you build this inner foundation, you become less dependent on external validation or conditions for your peace. This sense of self-trust allows you to navigate life with confidence, because you know that regardless of what happens, you have the inner resources to adapt and move forward. Resilience is strengthened by cultivating flexibility of mind and heart, because rigid expectations and resistance to change create suffering, while openness and adaptability allow you to flow with life without losing your balance. This flexibility comes from practicing acceptance of what is and developing the ability to adjust your plans and perspectives without losing sight of your core values. Another important dimension of resilience is building a supportive mental and emotional environment, which means surrounding yourself with positive influences, practicing self-compassion, and engaging in habits that nurture your well-being, because resilience is not just an individual skill, but a product of the environments we create for ourselves. Self-talk plays a crucial role here. The language you use internally can either strengthen or weaken your resilience, and consistent positive self-talk reinforces your ability to remain steady under pressure. Resilient individuals view difficulty not as something to be feared or avoided, but as a natural part of life's process of growth. They develop the capacity to embrace discomfort with curiosity rather than resistance, recognizing that every challenge contains within it the seeds of learning and transformation. Building resilience also requires cultivating patience and persistence. Because emotional growth takes time and consistent effort, there will be moments when setbacks challenge your progress. Yet, it is precisely these moments that deepen resilience when met with conscious awareness and self-compassion. Part of resilience is also learning to let go of emotional baggage from the past, because unresolved pain and resentment act as anchors that keep you stuck in old patterns. and releasing them allows you to move forward unburdened, stronger, and more able to respond with clarity to present circumstances. Emotional resilience also grows when you practice gratitude and focus on what is within your control rather than what lies beyond it. This shift in perspective frees you from unnecessary stress and grounds you in what truly matters, fostering a sense of peace, even in difficult times. Another important practice is reframing failure as feedback rather than defeat, which transforms challenges into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. This reframing allows you to approach life with courage rather than fear. Developing resilience is not about becoming immune to hardship, but about becoming capable of facing hardship with a sense of inner steadiness and confidence that no external event can shake. And this comes from consistent mental and emotional practice that strengthens your capacity to recover and grow. Resilience is built moment by moment, choice by choice, as you decide to respond to life with awareness rather than reaction, with acceptance rather than resistance, with strength rather than surrender. This chapter is an invitation to develop emotional resilience as a lifelong practice, to cultivate mental habits that strengthen your ability to face adversity without losing your peace, to see challenges as opportunities for growth, and to anchor yourself in the unshakable foundation of self-awareness, self-compassion, and adaptability, so that you can stop letting anything affect you. When you master emotional resilience, you step into a life where external circumstances no longer dictate your inner state, and you gain the freedom to live with confidence, clarity, peace, no matter what life brings. This is the essence of true mastery over your emotional world. Practicing self-compassion is one of the most transformative ways to stop letting anything affect you, because it shifts your inner dialogue from one of self-criticism and judgment to one of understanding and kindness. This change in relationship with yourself is the foundation for emotional freedom and resilience, as self-compassion allows you to face life's challenges without being harsh or punitive toward yourself, creating a supportive inner environment where growth and healing can occur naturally. It is the conscious choice to treat yourself with the same care and empathy you would offer to a loved one, especially in moments of struggle, failure, or discomfort, and it is a skill that must be cultivated intentionally through awareness, practice, and patience. Self-compassion begins with awareness of your inner voice, noticing when it shifts into criticism, blame, or self-condemnation, and choosing to redirect it toward encouragement and understanding, because the way you speak to yourself shapes not only your emotional state, but also your ability to navigate challenges effectively. Developing self-compassion also involves recognizing that suffering and imperfection are part of the human experience rather than signs of personal failure. And when you internalize this truth, you release the unrealistic expectations that fuel stress and self-judgment. It is about embracing your humanness and accepting that making mistakes, experiencing pain, and encountering setbacks are inevitable aspects of growth, and that treating yourself with kindness in those moments is a powerful act of self-care. Self-compassion is not about excusing poor choices or avoiding responsibility, rather, is about creating a balanced inner response that acknowledges the reality of the situation, while offering yourself patience and encouragement to move forward. This balance requires mindfulness, the ability to be present with your emotions without identifying with them, and the willingness to observe your thoughts and feelings without harsh judgment allows you to respond with clarity rather than reactivity. Another crucial element of self-compassion is forgiveness, which releases the burden of past mistakes and frees you to live fully in the present. When you forgive yourself, you stop carrying unnecessary emotional weight that can hinder your growth, and you open space for healing and transformation. Forgiveness is an active choice that requires awareness and courage, because it challenges the habit of blaming yourself as a way to maintain control. It invites a deeper acceptance of your humanity. Self-compassion also means caring for your physical and mental well-being, because treating yourself with kindness extends beyond your inner dialogue to the choices you make in daily life. This includes setting healthy boundaries, prioritizing rest, nurturing your body with proper nourishment, and engaging in activities that bring joy and fulfillment, because your external habits reinforce your inner state and contribute to your overall resilience. Another powerful aspect of self-compassion is shifting your perspective toward growth rather than perfection, allows you to approach challenges with curiosity and openness rather than fear and self-criticism. This shift transforms how you interpret setbacks, turning them into opportunities to learn rather than evidence of inadequacy, and it fosters a mindset that embraces effort and progress over flawless results. Self-compassion also strengthens your ability to face criticism from others without internalizing it as a reflection of your worth. Because when your sense of value comes from your own kindness toward yourself, rather than external validation, you build emotional independence and stability. Cultivating self-compassion requires consistent practice, as it challenges deeply ingrained patterns of self-judgment and societal conditioning that equate self-worth with achievement and approval. This practice can include daily affirmations, mindful reflection, journaling, and intentional acts of kindness toward yourself, all of which reinforce the habit of speaking to yourself with compassion and understanding. It also involves creating a mental habit of pausing before reacting to perceived failures or setbacks, giving yourself space to choose a response rooted in kindness rather than criticism, and gradually strengthening your inner resilience. Self-compassion ultimately transforms your relationship with yourself and with life, because it shifts your inner foundation from one of judgment to one of support, allowing you to navigate life with greater ease, confidence, and peace. When you practice self-compassion, you stop letting harsh self-talk and emotional self-criticism dictate your inner state, and instead cultivate an inner environment where you can respond to life's challenges with patience, strength, and grace. This chapter invites you to make self-compassion a daily practice, integrating it into your mindset so that you no longer allow external circumstances or internal criticism to disturb your peace, that you build a lasting foundation of emotional strength and inner freedom. When self-compassion becomes your default response to difficulty, you create a deep reservoir of emotional resilience that enables you to face life with courage, clarity, and peace. This is the true mastery of your inner world. Cultivating a mindset of gratitude is one of the most powerful tools you can use to stop letting anything affect you, because gratitude shifts your focus from what is lacking or going wrong to what is already present and good in your life. And this shift in attention transforms your inner world, reshaping your perception of challenges and reducing the emotional power they hold over you. Gratitude is not simply a feeling but a deliberate practice that rewires your mind to notice the positive aspects of life, even amidst difficulties. When practiced consistently, it builds emotional resilience, fosters joy, and strengthens your ability to remain steady in the face of adversity, because it changes the lens through which you view your experiences. turning obstacles into opportunities for growth and perspective. Practicing gratitude begins with awareness, noticing and acknowledging even the smallest blessings, whether they are moments of peace, acts of kindness, a breath of fresh air, or the presence of supportive people in your life. Because the act of noticing rewires your brain to prioritize what is positive rather than dwelling on what is negative. Gratitude requires conscious effort, especially in challenging times when it is easy to focus on problems, and it often involves intentionally shifting your attention away from complaints and toward appreciation, which can be cultivated through daily habits such as journaling or verbal affirmations. Writing down 3 things you are grateful for each day, for example, trains your brain to seek out positive elements of life and creates a habit of appreciation that becomes increasingly natural over time. Your full attention. Gratitude also involves reframing your perception of difficulties by asking yourself what lessons or opportunities might be hidden within them, because every challenge can contain a seed of growth when viewed through a lens of appreciation rather than resistance. This reframing transforms your experience of hardship, replacing frustration and resentment with curiosity and acceptance, and empowering you to respond to life with grace rather than emotional turmoil. Gratitude strengthens emotional resilience because it creates a mental environment where positivity outweighs negativity, reducing the impact of external circumstances on your inner state, and making it easier to maintain peace and clarity when faced with stress or conflict. Another essential element of cultivating gratitude is appreciating yourself. Acknowledging your strengths, efforts, and progress rather than focusing only on shortcomings or mistakes. Self-appreciation reinforces your self-worth and fosters a positive self-dialogue that shields you from the effects of external criticism. Gratitude also deepens your connection to others, because recognizing and appreciating their contributions nurtures empathy, kindness, and meaningful relationships, and these connections act as a powerful support system in moments of challenge. When you express gratitude to others, you not only strengthen your relationships, but also reinforce your own emotional well-being, because gratitude is a reciprocal energy that fosters positivity in both the giver and the receiver. Practicing gratitude also involves letting go of entitlement and comparison, because these attitudes create dissatisfaction and keep your attention on what you lack rather than what you have, whereas gratitude cultivates contentment and peace. Letting go of comparison means acknowledging your own journey without measuring it against others, recognizing that your path is unique, valuable, and worthy of appreciation regardless of external standards. Gratitude is also deeply connected to mindfulness, because being present allows you to fully experience and appreciate the richness of life in each moment, and practicing mindfulness helps you notice positive details that might otherwise go overlooked, thereby deepening your sense of appreciation. Another aspect of gratitude is resilience in perspective. Choosing to focus on what is possible rather than what is lost, on what remains rather than what is gone, on growth rather than stagnation, because this mental stance keeps your energy directed toward solutions and progress rather than negativity and regret. Gratitude transforms not only your emotional state, but also your physiological state, as studies have shown that regular practice of gratitude can lower stress, improve sleep, and enhance overall health, because the mental shift toward appreciation creates a calmer, more positive internal environment that supports well-being. Cultivating gratitude also strengthens your ability to adapt to change, because when you maintain a focus on what is valuable and good, you are less likely to be destabilized by uncertainty or loss, and more likely to respond with clarity and optimism. Yours gratitude is not about ignoring challenges or pretending that difficulties do not exist, but about choosing to give attention to what is good despite them. This choice changes the nature of your experience, empowering you to respond with resilience and grace. This chapter invites you to make gratitude a daily habit, integrating it into your mindset through intentional reflection, mindfulness, and self-expression, so that your inner state is anchored in appreciation rather than disturbance, that you can stop letting external events dictate your peace of mind. When gratitude becomes a consistent practice, build a mental habit that buffers you against negativity, reduces emotional reactivity, and strengthens your capacity to face life with calm, joy, resilience. This is the true mastery of cultivating a mind that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. Learning to embrace uncertainty is one of the most powerful shifts you can make in transforming your mindset and stopping anything from disturbing your peace. Uncertainty is an inevitable part of life, and resisting it only creates stress, fear, and emotional instability, whereas embracing it allows you to live with confidence, adaptability, and resilience. This shift begins by changing your perspective about control and accepting that not everything in life can be predicted, managed, or solved, which paradoxically gives you greater freedom and peace. When you learn to sit with the unknown rather than resist it, you no longer expend energy on trying to control what cannot be controlled, and instead channel your focus toward what is within your power. Your thoughts, choices, and responses. And this shift is the essence of emotional mastery. Embracing uncertainty begins with awareness, noticing your tendency to seek certainty in situations and recognizing how that need fuels anxiety and disappointment when life unfolds differently than expected. A deep desire for control is rooted in fear of the unknown, and this fear keeps you reactive rather than proactive. To shift this mindset, you must reframe uncertainty not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth, creativity, and discovery, because when you view life's unpredictability as a space for possibility rather than danger, your relationship with change transforms entirely. This mindset shift requires cultivating trust. Trust in your ability to adapt, trust in your resilience, trust that you will find a way forward even when the path is unclear. And this trust is built through repeated experiences of navigating change with awareness and grace. Practicing presence is a powerful way to embrace uncertainty, because living fully in the moment removes much of the anxiety created by worrying about the future or dwelling on what has already happened, and presence grounds you in the reality that you have influence only over the now. Mindfulness practices such as meditation, breathing exercises, and reflective journaling can help strengthen your capacity to remain centered amid uncertainty, because they train your mind to stay anchored even when external conditions shift unexpectedly. Another key aspect of embracing uncertainty is releasing the need for perfection, because perfectionism often drives a false sense of control and makes you resistant to change, whereas accepting imperfection allows you to flow with life rather than resist it. Letting go of perfection means understanding that mistakes, failures, and unexpected detours are not evidence of inadequacy, but essential components of growth and learning, and this understanding fosters flexibility, courage, resilience. Cultivating curiosity is another powerful strategy for embracing uncertainty, because when you approach the unknown with curiosity rather than fear, you transform uncertainty into an invitation to explore, learn, expand your perspective, and this shift changes your entire experience of life. Curiosity invites openness, adaptability, and a willingness to experiment, and it transforms challenges into opportunities for discovery rather than sources of stress. Embracing uncertainty also means developing emotional resilience so that you can remain steady in the face of change. Resilience is cultivated through a combination of self-awareness, self-compassion, and mental flexibility. These qualities allow you to respond to uncertainty with calm and clarity rather than anxiety and resistance. Another important aspect is building a supportive inner dialogue that reassures rather than criticizes, because when uncertainty arises, your inner voice can either amplify fear or reinforce your capacity to adapt, and self-talk rooted in encouragement creates a stable foundation for navigating change. Embracing uncertainty is also about letting go of rigid expectations and attachments to specific outcomes, because attachment creates suffering when reality does not match those expectations, whereas detachment creates freedom to experience life as it unfolds. This does not mean giving up goals or aspirations, but approaching them with flexibility and openness, understanding that the path to fulfillment is rarely linear, and that detours often bring unexpected value and growth. Another vital practice is gratitude, which transforms uncertainty by helping you focus on what is present and meaningful rather than what is unknown or missing, and gratitude grounds you in a sense of abundance that buffers against fear and anxiety. Embracing uncertainty also requires courage. The courage to step into the unknown without full assurance of the outcome, trusting that your inner strength and resourcefulness will guide you, and understanding that discomfort is often a sign of growth rather than danger. This courage grows through repeated practice, as each time you face uncertainty without succumbing to fear, you strengthen your ability to handle future challenges with confidence and composure. Ultimately, embracing uncertainty is about cultivating a mindset that is adaptable, open, and grounded, so that you can stop letting the unknown control your emotional state, and instead use uncertainty as a source of growth, resilience, and possibility. When this becomes a natural part of your mindset, you build an inner foundation that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. You live with a profound sense of freedom, confidence, peace even in the face of life's unpredictability. Learning to master emotional detachment is one of the most essential skills in stopping anything from affecting you, because detachment does not mean ignoring life or suppressing feelings, but rather creating a healthy distance between your inner peace and external circumstances, and this distance allows you to respond with clarity instead of being swept away by emotional turbulence. And detachment is not about coldness, but about cultivating a calm center that is unshaken by the chaos around you, so that you can live with intentionality rather than reaction. Emotional detachment is a mindset that can be developed through conscious self-awareness, and it begins with recognizing when your emotional responses are driven by attachment to outcomes, people, or situations, because often what disturbs us is not the event itself, but our insistence that things must be a certain way, and letting go of this insistence opens the door to inner peace. Detachment requires understanding the difference between involvement and absorption. You can be fully present in life while remaining grounded, rather than being pulled into emotional upheaval, and this awareness transforms your capacity to navigate challenges without losing your equilibrium. One of the first steps toward emotional detachment is developing self-awareness of your triggers. noticing what kinds of situations, people, or thoughts tend to provoke strong emotional reactions. Because awareness is the key to gaining choice and control over your responses, rather than being driven by unconscious patterns. Practicing mindfulness is another powerful way to cultivate detachment, because mindfulness trains you to observe your emotions without becoming consumed by them, and this capacity to witness your inner world creates a gap between stimulus and reaction where conscious choice can emerge. Emotional detachment also involves cultivating self-compassion, because self-compassion grounds you in kindness toward yourself rather than judgment, allowing you to process emotions without becoming overwhelmed, and it builds resilience by affirming that you can handle life's challenges without losing your peace. Another important aspect is developing a strong sense of personal boundaries, because detachment is not about avoiding life or shutting down emotions, but about knowing where your limits lie and protecting your mental and emotional energy. And this requires saying no to what drains you and yes to what nurtures you. Detachment is strengthened by shifting perspective, understanding that your emotional state is largely a product of your perception, and that by changing how you interpret events, you change how you feel about them. This shift empowers you to respond to life with equanimity rather than reactivity. This involves reframing situations, choosing to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats to your peace, and understanding that discomfort is not the enemy, but a teacher guiding you towards strength. Emotional detachment also means letting go of the need for control over people and outcomes, because attachment to control creates emotional dependency, and relinquishing this need fosters freedom, acceptance, and a deeper trust in life's flow. It is important to understand that detachment is not apathy. It is active engagement with life from a place of inner stability, where your involvement is guided by conscious choice rather than emotional impulse. This clarity transforms your interactions and experiences. Practicing detachment also requires patience, because a skill developed over time through consistent practice, self-reflection, and an openness to letting go of old patterns. It involves embracing uncertainty as part of life rather than resisting it. Detachment strengthens your resilience, because it creates a stable emotional foundation that allows you to adapt to change without losing your peace. And it transforms how you navigate conflict, criticism, and loss, because you respond from a place of calm rather than reaction. Another key element is integrating detachment into your self-talk. Replacing self-critical or fear-based inner dialogue with affirmations that remind you of your ability to remain grounded and unaffected by external events, because the way you speak to yourself shapes your emotional landscape profoundly. Emotional detachment also deepens your capacity for compassion toward others, because when you are not driven by emotional reactivity, you can respond with empathy, understanding, and clarity rather than defensiveness or judgment, and this transforms relationships by fostering connection rooted in mutual respect and balance. Practicing detachment involves daily choices, choosing not to internalize negativity, choosing to release expectations, choosing to respond with presence rather than impulse. And these choices, repeated over time, build a powerful habit of emotional stability. Detachment is a continuous practice that requires self-awareness, discipline, and self-love, and as you cultivate it, you discover that your peace becomes less dependent on external conditions and more grounded in your inner world, allowing you to navigate life's storms with grace. Ultimately, mastering emotional detachment is about creating a resilient mind and heart that are anchored in stillness, capable of facing life fully without being undone by it. This is the true liberation of transforming your mindset so that nothing outside can disturb your peace. And when detachment becomes a natural part of who you are, you live with a freedom and strength that allows you to move through life with calm, clarity, and unshakable balance. Cultivating the power of inner resilience is one of the most transformative practices for stopping anything from affecting you, because resilience is not merely the ability to recover from difficulties, but the capacity to remain steady, balanced, and centered no matter what life throws at you. And this inner strength is cultivated through intentional mindset shifts, daily habits, self-awareness, and once resilience becomes part of your inner foundation, it changes not only how you respond to challenges, but how you perceive them, transforming obstacles into opportunities for growth rather than threats to your peace. This shift begins with understanding that resilience is not something you are born with, but a skill you build over time through practice, reflection, and conscious choices, because your mindset shapes the way you experience adversity. And cultivating resilience starts with taking ownership of your mental state, rather than blaming external circumstances for your emotional reactions. And this ownership creates empowerment, because when you accept responsibility for your emotional life, you stop giving away your power and instead anchor your stability in yourself rather than in what is outside of you. Developing inner resilience begins with strengthening your emotional awareness, noticing how you respond to stress, disappointment, or conflict, and learning to pause before reacting so you can choose a response that aligns with your values rather than being driven by impulse or fear. This pause creates a space where choice replaces reaction, and choice is the essence of resilience. Another important aspect of resilience is cultivating adaptability. The willingness to shift your approach, expectations, perspective in the face of change. Because rigidity creates resistance and suffering, whereas adaptability allows you to flow with life's changes without losing your center, and adaptability grows from a mindset that views change not as a disruption but as an inevitable and valuable part of life. Building resilience also requires developing a strong foundation of self-care, because resilience is not about enduring stress without rest, but about replenishing your physical, emotional, and mental energy so that you can respond to challenges with strength and clarity rather than depletion and fragility. Self-care becomes an act of resilience when it is consistent, intentional, and aligned with your needs. This includes practices such as adequate rest, mindful breathing, nourishing your body, setting healthy boundaries, and engaging in activities that bring you joy and replenishment, because resilience is rooted in the strength that comes from caring for yourself fully. Another key element of resilience is cultivating a growth-oriented mindset. The belief that challenges are not roadblocks but opportunities for development, and that setbacks can provide lessons that strengthen you for the future. Because this mindset transforms difficulty from a source of despair into a catalyst for growth. It shifts your emotional response from resistance to curiosity and learning. Resilience is also deepened by fostering a strong connection to purpose and meaning, because when you have a clear sense of why you are moving forward, you gain an anchor that carries you through uncertainty and hardship, and purpose fuels persistence and hope. Cultivating inner resilience also involves developing mental flexibility. The ability to shift your thinking, reframe situations, and let go of rigid expectations, because this flexibility allows you to adapt without losing your sense of stability, and it transforms challenges into opportunities for creative problem solving and personal growth. Another critical component is building emotional regulation skills, because resilience is not about suppressing emotions, but about managing them so they do not overpower your ability to think clearly and act intentionally. And emotional regulation comes from awareness, self-compassion, and intentional practice in shifting perspective. Resilience is strengthened through self-talk that affirms your ability to handle adversity, replacing self-doubt with encouragement and reassurance, because your inner dialogue directly shapes your emotional resilience. Consistent positive self-talk becomes a mental habit that reinforces strength and stability. Another powerful practice is surrounding yourself with supportive people who encourage growth, inspire confidence, and offer constructive perspectives. Resilience flourishes in connection, and while your inner strength must ultimately come from within, yes, having a supportive network creates a foundation that bolsters your ability to endure challenges with clarity and courage. Cultivating resilience also means developing patience, because growth rarely happens instantly, and resilience is built in the gradual process of learning, adapting, and strengthening over time, and patience allows you to endure this process without frustration or despair, transforming challenges into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Inner resilience is also rooted in gratitude, the ability to focus on what is present and meaningful rather than what is lacking, because gratitude shifts your mindset away from scarcity and fear toward abundance and possibility. This shift strengthens your capacity to face uncertainty with equanimity. Ultimately, cultivating inner resilience is about creating a stable inner foundation that allows you to navigate life with strength, clarity, and grace. And when resilience becomes a core part of who you are, external circumstances lose their power to disturb your peace, because you no longer depend on the world around you for your sense of stability and well-being. And this shift transforms not only how you respond to challenges, but how you live every moment, allowing you to move through life with calm confidence, grounded strength, and unwavering peace, even in the face of uncertainty and change. This is the true essence of mastering your mindset, so that nothing outside can control your inner world. Understanding the power of self-awareness is one of the most essential keys to stopping anything from affecting you, because self-awareness is the gateway to mastery over your mind and emotions, and it allows you to observe yourself without being consumed by your thoughts or feelings. And when self-awareness becomes a daily practice, it transforms your ability to navigate life with calm and clarity, because you begin to recognize patterns, triggers, and habitual responses that keep you emotionally entangled, and you start to see that your reactions are choices rather than inevitable responses. This recognition empowers you to step out of unconscious cycles and choose a path that aligns with your values and peace, rather than reacting based on conditioning, fears, or past wounds. And cultivating self-awareness requires a deep commitment to honest self-reflection, because it demands that you look at your thoughts, feelings, and actions without defensiveness or judgment, and this is often uncomfortable, yet it is in that discomfort where growth begins. Awareness begins with developing the habit of observation, noticing what you are thinking, feeling, and reacting to in any given moment without rushing to judge or change it. And this moment-to-moment awareness creates a space where choice and freedom emerge, because you are no longer automatically driven by unconscious programming. Another vital part of self-awareness is identifying your emotional triggers. those specific people, situations, or thoughts that provoke strong emotional responses, because by naming these triggers, you diminish their unconscious power over you, and you can prepare yourself with tools to respond consciously rather than reactively. This strengthens your inner stability. Developing self-awareness also involves understanding the stories you tell yourself about yourself and the world, because your inner narrative shapes your perception and therefore your emotional responses, and by becoming aware of limiting or negative narratives, you gain the ability to reframe them and shift your mindset toward empowerment and peace. Self-awareness deepens when you cultivate mindfulness, because mindfulness trains your mind to observe without attachment or aversion, and this detached awareness allows you to see reality more clearly, and clarity is essential for transforming how you respond to challenges without losing your peace. Journaling is another powerful tool for developing self-awareness, because writing your thoughts and feelings creates an external mirror that reveals patterns and insights that might otherwise remain hidden. And journaling can be a daily practice that strengthens your ability to pause, reflect, and redirect your energy consciously. Self-awareness also includes understanding your values and priorities, because when you know what truly matters to you, you gain an anchor for decision-making that keeps you grounded even in turbulent situations, and this clarity creates emotional stability. You are no longer tossed by every passing opinion, event, or circumstance. A key element of self-awareness is recognizing that your emotions are not facts but signals, and these signals are there to inform you rather than control you. And when you understand this, you can choose to respond with intention instead of being driven by emotional impulse. This requires developing emotional literacy, the ability to name and understand your emotions without letting them overwhelm you. And this skill grows through mindfulness, reflection, and compassionate self-observation. Self-awareness is also deeply connected to the way you speak to yourself, because your inner dialogue reflects your level of awareness, and by noticing whether your self-talk is supportive or critical, you can begin to shift it toward affirmations that strengthen your peace, rather than undermine it, and positive self-talk becomes a powerful tool for cultivating emotional resilience and detachment. Cultivating self-awareness requires humility, because it means acknowledging that you do not always have the answers, and being willing to explore the parts of yourself that are hidden or uncomfortable. And humility opens the door to growth, because growth begins with awareness of what needs to change. Another aspect of self-awareness is being aware of your body and physical sensations, because emotions are embodied, and learning to notice tension, discomfort, or ease in the body gives you real-time information about your emotional state, allowing you to intervene before reactions spiral out of control. And body awareness becomes a powerful ally in developing emotional detachment. Developing self-awareness also involves a willingness to challenge your assumptions, because much of what influences your emotional state comes from unconscious beliefs and habitual interpretations of reality, and questioning these assumptions creates freedom and a more grounded emotional life. Self-awareness is a skill that grows with consistent practice, whether through meditation, reflection, journaling, mindful breathing, or honest conversations with yourself. And as you develop it, cultivate the ability to notice when something begins to affect you and step out of automatic reactivity to choose peace instead. Ultimately, self-awareness transforms your relationship with yourself and the world, because it creates a stable foundation where your emotional life is guided by conscious choice, rather than unconscious reaction, and this foundation makes it possible to live with a freedom where nothing external can disturb your inner peace. And self-awareness becomes not just a practice, but a way of being, a constant presence of mind that anchors you in stillness, even amidst life's challenges. And it is through this deep self-awareness that you truly transform your mindset, so that you are no longer at the mercy of external circumstances, but grounded in your own inner strength, clarity, and peace. Mastering the art of emotional freedom is the ultimate stage in the journey of stopping anything from affecting you, because emotional freedom is the state where you have full ownership of your inner life, where your peace is not dictated by external events, other people's actions, or circumstances beyond your control, and this mastery is the result of consistent inner work, the kind that transforms reactive habits into deliberate responses, and it is cultivated through self-awareness, resilience, self-talk, mindfulness, and a deep commitment to personal growth, because without intentional practice, it is easy to slip back into old patterns of being influenced by external forces, and emotional freedom requires a steady and conscious choice to maintain your center, no matter what happens. This choice becomes second nature when it is reinforced daily through mindful living, consistent reflection, and aligned action, and once achieved, it fundamentally transforms your life, because when you are emotionally free, you are no longer a passive participant in life, but an active creator of your own experience. Emotional freedom begins with recognizing that your emotional state is yours to manage, and that while you cannot control every event that happens in life, you can control how you perceive, interpret, and respond to those events, and this realization alone shifts your power from outside of you to within you, because it changes your role from a victim of circumstance to the author of your own emotional reality, and this shift is foundational to lasting peace. Another vital aspect of emotional freedom is developing mastery over your inner dialogue, because the way you speak to yourself shapes your emotions. Self-talk either reinforces reactivity or strengthens calm, and when you intentionally cultivate empowering, compassionate, and constructive self-talk, rewire your mental habits so that peace becomes your default state. And this rewiring requires patience, consistency, and self-compassion. Old thought patterns are deeply ingrained and take time to shift, but the reward is profound emotional stability. Emotional freedom is also supported by cultivating detachment, which does not mean indifference, but rather a healthy separation between your sense of self and the ups and downs of life, because detachment allows you to engage fully without losing your balance, and this requires the ability to observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them, and detachment grows through mindfulness, meditation, reflection, and when cultivated, becomes a powerful shield against the emotional turbulence that comes from giving excessive importance to external factors. Another essential pillar of emotional freedom is embracing acceptance, the deep recognition that life will always contain uncertainty, change, events beyond your control, and accepting this truth reduces resistance, which is a primary source of suffering, and acceptance creates space for peace, because once you stop fighting reality, your energy is freed to focus on how you choose to respond. And acceptance is not resignation, but an empowered stance that allows you to act with clarity and intention. Emotional freedom also grows from the consistent practice of gratitude, because gratitude shifts your focus from what is lacking to what is present and abundant. It rewires your brain to notice opportunities and blessings rather than problems and threats. And this shift reduces emotional reactivity, because gratitude creates a stable emotional foundation that is less easily disturbed by external events, and cultivating gratitude can be as simple as daily reflection, journaling, or verbal acknowledgement of what you appreciate in life. Another deep component of emotional freedom is living in alignment with your values, because when your actions are consistent with your core beliefs and priorities, you cultivate integrity and inner harmony. This alignment strengthens your emotional stability, because you no longer experience inner conflict when external events challenge you. You respond from a place of clarity rather than confusion. Emotional freedom is also deeply connected to self-compassion, because compassion for yourself allows you to treat your emotional reactions not as flaws to be criticized, but as signals to be understood and transformed. Self-compassion dissolves guilt and self-blame that can keep you tethered to reactive patterns, and when you respond to yourself with kindness, patience, and understanding, you create a safe internal environment that allows your emotional life to evolve toward greater freedom. Another powerful practice for cultivating emotional freedom is boundary setting, because boundaries define where your emotional responsibility begins and ends, and when you set healthy boundaries, you prevent others' energy, opinions, and behavior from intruding unnecessarily into your emotional space. And this preserves your center and strengthens your ability to remain unaffected by outside influence. Emotional freedom is ultimately about living with intentionality, because when you consistently choose your responses rather than reacting unconsciously, you step into your power and live as an active participant in your emotional life. And this choice becomes a muscle that grows stronger with daily exercise, mindfulness, reflection, self-talk, emotional regulation, and self-care. Mastering emotional freedom also means embracing impermanence, understanding that emotions, like circumstances, are transient and will pass. And this perspective creates a detachment that keeps you grounded during both joy and difficulty, because you know that no state is permanent and that your inner peace does not depend on constant circumstances. When emotional freedom is fully embodied, you find yourself no longer tossed by the storms of life. You have cultivated an inner sanctuary that remains steady regardless of external turbulence. And this sanctuary is created through the integration of all the practices and insights cultivated throughout this journey, and it is sustained by your daily commitment to your inner growth and self-mastery. And once emotional freedom becomes a lived reality, experience a profound shift. Life no longer controls your peace, and you move through the world with grace, strength, and unwavering presence, knowing that your inner world is yours to protect and nurture. And in this mastery, you discover that the highest form of freedom is not the absence of challenges, but the ability to remain unshaken by them, because your peace is rooted in who you are rather than in what happens around you. And this is the essence of transforming your mindset, so that nothing external can disturb your inner life. This is the ultimate gift of emotional freedom, the ability to live fully, freely, and powerfully in every moment, regardless of circumstance.